Hello students, welcome to today's class, and today we are going to discuss one of the most important formula, which is called the section formula as well as the midpoint formula. These two we will discuss today in today's section before 7.2 exercise number 7.2, which is very important. So what is the name of the formula? Section formula. Main things, this section formula where to use and how to use. Pxy is equals to m1 x2 plus m2 x1 by m1 plus m2, m1 y2 plus m2 y1 by m1 plus m2. What are these m1 m2, what are these x1 x2, all these we will discuss. And actually, what do you mean by section? A section means a part. What is the section? Section means a part of anything, that is called as section. So now let me say this is a straight line. This is straight line. Let me give the name of the straight line as A and B. Suppose this is the name of the straight line, and the coordinates of both the points A and B is, if it is x1 y1 and x2 y2. So A and B are the coordinates of this straight line, means the line segment joining these 2 points. So this is a line segment. This line segment is formed because of these 2 points A and B. If I join this point A and B, it becomes a straight line. Now what are the points A? The coordinates of A is x1, y1, and the coordinate of B is x2, y2. Now let me take a point on this straight line which divide this straight line into some parts. Suppose a P is a point which divides this line AB in some ratio, and the coordinates of, suppose this P is xy. We don't know what is the coordinate of this point. The point P which divide the line segment AB in some ratio. Let the ratio be M1 and M2. So now it is clear what is M1, M2. These are the point which divide the line segment in some ratio. Means I can say this M1 is a part and M2 is a part. That means I can write instead of M1 2 and instead of M2 3. That means this point divide this line segment AB in the ratio of 2:3. Means this part is 2 parts and this is 3 parts. Now it is clear what is this point P. Point P divide the line segment into 2 parts. The first part is in the ratio of 2. In the first part contains 2 parts and the second part contains 3 parts. So this is called the section formula. Means this is the point which divide this line segment into 2 parts. These parts are nothing but a section. That means this point divide the line segment in 2 sections. This is the first section, this is the second section. First section we denote as M1, second section we denote as M2. So therefore, if one wants to find what is the coordinate of that point, which part? This point which divide the line segment. In that case, we have to use this formula. So Pxy means the point which divide this line segment. The coordinate of that point, if you want to find, this is the formula m1 into x2 plus m2 into x1. So what are these m1, m2? M1 is, instead of m1, he'll give some numbers, ratio 2:3 or 3:5. That means my m1 is to m2 may be any ratio. It may be 2:3. M1 is to M2, it may be 3:5. That means in what part it divides, he'll give that ratio. So M1 is nothing but it is the part, the first section, 2 parts, 3 parts, 5 parts. So instead of this 2, 3, 5, we generally take as M1, and this is the second part which generally we took as M2. In that case, we have to use this formula. So under what case we have to use this formula? If a line segment is divided by a point in some ratio, then what is the coordinate of that point which divide this line segment? That can be calculated by this formula, and this formula is called section formula, which is very important, and completely second exercise we will use this formula only, section formula. Now if the line segment, it may divides equally or it may divides unequally. That means this part may be 2, this part may be 3. The first part may be 3, second part may be 5. The first part may be 5, second part may be 5. So in some cases, if it divides, if the line segment this line segment AB, if it divides equally, suppose this is a point, this is the point PXY, this point divide the line segment equally. That means if the first part is 1, second part also 1, equally if it divides, then this formula becomes your midpoint. I can say this is a midpoint because if this point divide the line segment into two equal parts differently, this is called the midpoint. Then only the two parts are equal. If the two parts becomes equal, in that case this point P becomes my midpoint. What is that? Midpoint. This P will become midpoint if this P divide this line segment into two equal parts. In that case, if I use, my M1 becomes what? 1, and my M2 also becomes 1. So if I substitute this value in this, Pxy is equals to M1 x2. What is my M1? M1 is 1. M1 x2 plus M2. M2 is again 1. M2 x1 divided by M1 plus M2. Again M1 y2. M1 y2. What is y2? M1 y2 plus again M2 y1 divided by 1 plus 1. So this becomes 1 into x2, that is x2, divided by 2 y2 plus y1 divided by 2. This becomes the midpoint formula. So this midpoint formula we got from section formula. So this midpoint formula becomes x1 plus x2 by 2, y1 plus y2 by 2. Under what condition? The condition is the point which divides the line segment, that point must divide equally. Then only the point becomes a midpoint, and this is the midpoint formula. Where to write? Okay. This formula is called midpoint formula. Midpoint formula. So what is my midpoint formula? My midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now, there is a special case. If it is given, find the ratio in which, if he is asking the ratio, suppose ratio here is not given. If it is given, one special case is there. So what is the special case? If or else find the ratio. Find the ratio in which the line segment divides. Let me draw the figure. Suppose this is a line segment. This line segment, and the coordinates of this one is x1, y1, and the coordinate of this one is x2, y2. Suppose here is a point. Here is a point, that is P. If it is given, find the ratio in which this divides. Suppose if it is given, under what ratio? If it divides in the ratio of k is to 1, let me make it more clear. This point divides not instead of m1 is to m2. Suppose m1 is m2 not given. If this point divide this line segment in the ratio of k is to 1. What is that? K is to 1. Suppose this point divide the line segment in the ratio of k is to 1, then my section formula becomes what? See, Pxy is equals to, what is exactly my formula is m1 x2 plus m2 x1 divided by m1 plus m2, again m1 y2 m2 y1 divided by m1 plus m2. But the m1 becomes k. So right here k x2, m2 becomes 1 into x1 divided by m1 plus m2. What is my m1? My m1 is k and my m2 is 1. So k plus 1 again m1 k y2 plus 1 into y1 divided by k plus 1. So finally what it becomes? It becomes kx2 plus x1 divided by k plus 1 ky2 plus y1 divided by k plus 1. So this is the first means x coordinate, this is my y coordinate. So if it is given the line segment, the point divides in the ratio of k is to 1, then this is the formula. The m1 becomes k and m2 becomes 1. That's all, nothing else. We simply apply, means all this we are getting from section formula. So once again, section formula where to use: if a point, means if a line divides, if a point divides the line in some ratio. If a straight line, suppose this is a straight line, this straight line is divided by a point in some ratio, any ratio may be anything, then the coordinate of this point can be calculated by using the section formula. And from the section formula we got the midpoint formula, and the special cases if it divides in the ratio of k is to 1. That's all. This is very important formula. Next we will do the 7.2 exercise completely basing on this one. The next video will discuss the 7.2 exercise.